So, let's talk about something that's all about timing. ISA 560, subsequent events. It answers a really critical question. What happens if some major news breaks after the financial year ends, but before that audit report is actually released to the public? And, what if it happens even after that?
Here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the basic definitions just to get on the same page. Then we'll walk through 3 completely distinct time windows where the auditor's responsibilities and, the potential drama can change in a big way. Okay, let's just jump right in with a classic scenario that really gets to the heart of ISA 560. Picture this. A company's year ends. Then, 2 weeks later, a huge fire destroys their main warehouse. The books are technically closed, right? So, what is the auditor supposed to do? This standard gives us the answer. Now, to even begin to answer that question, we've got to get the official timeline straight. Because in the world of auditing, timing isn't just important. It literally defines everything. You see, the standard itself is really smart about this. It splits subsequent events into 2 main buckets. First, you've got the events that happen in that specific window while the audit is being wrapped up. And then you've got crucial facts that might just pop up even later. This difference is absolutely fundamental.
Our timeline kicks off on a date we all know, the end of the company's financial year. For most companies, that's December 31st. This is the stake in the ground, the as-at date for the whole set of books. Next up, we have a really critical date, the day management officially signs off. This is them raising their hand and saying, yep, we prepared these financial statements and we are taking full responsibility for them. It's a formal, big deal.
And then there's this key date, the one the auditor actually puts on their final report. It's a public signal that says, as of this day, we've done our work, we've gathered our evidence, and here is our professional opinion. And notice that little detail. It can't be dated before management takes responsibility. That makes perfect sense, right?
And finally, we have the issuance date. This is launch day. It's when the whole package, the report, the financials, goes public and is out there for the whole world to see. This is when investors, lenders, and regulators get their hands on it.
So, put it all together, and there you have it. These 4 key dates create the 3 distinct windows of responsibility that we're about to explore. It's the time between these points where ISA 560 really comes to life.
All right, let's get into our first time window. I like to call this the active duty phase. This is that period where the auditor is still on site, still actively finishing up their work. Think of it as the final crucial stretch of the audit marathon.
Now this slide here, this really nails the huge shift in responsibility for the auditor. It's night and day. Before they sign that report, they have an active duty. They shall perform procedures. But the second they sign, that obligation to go looking for things just vanishes.
So what does active duty actually look like? Well, the standard lays out a pretty clear game plan. The auditor has to ask management what they're doing to track these events, they have to read the latest board minutes to see what's being talked about, and they need to look at any new financial data. They are actively hunting for information.
Okay, so now things get interesting. We're entering the second window. The main audit work is done, the report is signed, the pen is down, but that report hasn't gone public just yet. It's still sitting on the desk, so to speak.
And this is the key takeaway, right? The auditor isn't required to do any more work. They're not actively hunting for things anymore. But, and this is a huge but, if some critical piece of information lands in their lap, they can't just ignore it. They have to act. They've gone from active searcher to reactive responder. So if something does pop up, the standard gives the auditor a clear 3-step playbook. You can't just sit on it. You have to go talk to management. You have to figure out if the financials need to be changed, and you have to ask management, okay, so what are you going to do about this?
And this is where a really clever little tool comes in called dual dating. If something needs to be changed, like that warehouse fire we talked about, the auditor can use this technique. It basically lets them update the report for that one specific thing without having to reopen the entire audit for everything else that's happened since. It's pretty smart.
But what if management just says no? What if they refuse to make a change that's clearly needed? Well, that's when things get serious, really serious. The auditor has a professional duty to step in and tell management, you cannot release that original report. We now know it could be misleading.
And now for the final window. This is the most high-stakes scenario of them all. A critical fact is discovered after the audited financial statements are already out in public. The report is, as they say, out in the wild.
Just picture this for a second.
The report is out there, investors are reading it, making decisions, and suddenly the auditor learns something huge, something that was actually true back when they signed the report, but they just didn't know about it. And it's something that might have changed their entire opinion. So the auditor goes to management with this incredibly serious issue, and management does nothing. They won't revise the statements, they won't tell their shareholders about the new information. This is the moment of truth, you know? This is where an auditor's professional integrity is really put to the test.
And this is where the buck stops. The standard is crystal clear, and it's powerful. The auditor's ultimate duty is to take appropriate action to seek to prevent reliance on that report. They have to do what it takes to stop people from trusting a report they now know is flawed. This is the last line of defense.
Okay, so we've walked through these three very different windows. Let's pull back for a second and look at the big picture. Why is the standard, ISA 560, so incredibly fundamental to financial reporting and, frankly, to the health of our markets?
At the end of the day, this standard is all about integrity. It's there to make sure financial statements are as accurate as possible right when they're released. It's about clarity, right? It defines exactly who is responsible for what and when. And most importantly, it's about protection for investors and upholding trust in the entire financial system.
And that brings us to a really interesting final question for you to think about. In our world of 24/7 news cycles, where information travels at the speed of light, does that auditor's window for subsequent events ever really close? It's a question that sits right at the very heart of the modern auditing profession.